Ahoy there, folks. I'm Captain Benzie, and welcome back to another video for Influence, the massively multiplayer online space simulation game being developed by Unstoppable Games. Now, previously on this channel, I've taken you through my setup in Influence, looking at how I've got my production off the ground and how I've got the ball rolling. But now that we have an actual release date for Influence, 27th of June, by the way, it's closing in fast, I wanted to do a mini-series taking a look instead at how to get started in any particular field that you want to get started with. So if you've been watching my videos and thinking, oh, this part really interests me, or that part really interests me, there should be a video coming soon that will teach you exactly everything you need to know to get that part of the production chain off the ground. Now, why is this important? Because it is incredibly unlikely that any one player is going to basically do everything from start to finish. When you sign up for Influence, when you first join the game, you pick a pack that's going to have some sway, and you're going to need to make that work for you to the fullest of its capabilities. So join me today as we look at how to get started with mining and extraction in order to start harvesting raw materials to sell on the market. If you do enjoy this video, please let me know. Hit like, drop a comment, subscribe if you haven't already, and consider supporting this channel either through my Patreon, my PayPal tip jar, or by becoming a member of the channel. There's also super thanks down below, so if you find this really helpful, you can do a one-off donation that way. Anyway, all that said and done then, let's talk about mining. Now, the first thing you will ever need to do in Influence is to hire a crew. And if the idea of mining and extracting materials is something that appeals to you, then this is the crew setup that I would recommend. You can tweak this and work it to the best of your ability, but this, to me, is the best starting crew for getting started with mining. The idea is here that you're going to be extracting materials. So you're going to set up on a base of operations, start prospecting the area, find some materials that you want to extract, start extracting them, and then you can either just sell those straight on the market, or you can use this as a foundation for an industrial setup, either on your own if you do want to add additional steps later on, or even amongst your friends. You might decide that you want to be the guy who extracts everything for other people to then refine and manufacture with. You might decide you want to do it all, but ultimately it all starts with mining and excavating, right? So, the crew setup is fairly simple. We've got 3 builders and 2 miners. And this can vary. You can go for 2 builders and 3 miners, but I do strongly recommend that if mining is what you are interested in, that you have a fairly even split between builders and miners. You'll notice that all 3 of my builders, also have the builder ability. This is one of the traits here, and it says here, when I can actually pull it up, that's ambitious. Where are we hiding? There we are, builder. You have a 5% increased buildings construction speed. This is straight up really powerful early on. It means you can start getting buildings down onto the ground really, really quickly. And you're going to need to build warehouses, you're going to need to build extractors. So getting a few builders on your team to get the construction speeds right the way down is a great way to do it. Having 2 builders is a massive increase to your building speed. Having 3 is a pretty nice one. I personally found that because I'm doing other things, I go with 3 builders, but if you are going to be dedicated to mining, you might go 3 miners, 2 builders. Just make sure that both of your builders have the builder impactful trait, because that is going to seriously help you out early on. Now, in regards to the miners, again, whether you have 2 miners or whether you have 3 miners is up to you. I go for the surveyor trait because I find that this is one of the better ones to go for early on. You want that 10% increased core sampling speed while surveying an asteroid. Why is this more important than things like extraction speed? Because ultimately you want to find a good setup first, right? You want to get on the ground, find what you're looking for while prospecting, and then go from there. And core samples are required for you to start extracting. And I find personally that the surveyor impactful trait is the best way to do this. Essentially, you get out onto the asteroid, you set up your systems, and then you just start doing as many core samples as you can, and then start actually extracting in the background behind those. So you're constantly keeping that chain moving where you are surveying and then you are extracting, surveying, extracting, surveying, extracting. That is your core gameplay loop as a miner. You're going to be wanting to set up extractors all over the place, basically, to find the best pockets of materials. If you've been watching my series, you'll notice that the area I'm in has a lot of water and a little bit of things like apatite and calcite. You might decide that you want somewhere that has more of something else, which means you're going to need to set up more extractors and start doing more core sampling. Faster core sampling means you can do that faster. You can set up an extractor, core sample, and if you don't like it, you can then deconstruct that extractor and reconstruct it elsewhere. That is a valid way of doing things. It means you don't just have to set up extractors all over the place. You can then tear them down again and use those materials to build new extractors in hopefully a better position. And if you do that, I would recommend doing it as kind of a leapfrog effect. So you set down extractor A, and then you survey for the core sample, and then you set down extractor B, and you survey for a core sample. You've now got two samples that you can look at, and if you like the look of one of those areas more than the other, then you deconstruct the other one and build the second extractor next to whichever one is the prime example. So if you think A is the better extractor, you then deconstruct B and build another one at A. If you think B is the better one, you deconstruct A and build another one at B. So on and so forth. Hopefully, that should be fairly straightforward. But having miners with the surveyor impactful trait is really going to help you. But okay, that's your crew. So we've got two builders, two miners, and then a fifth option that is either a builder or a miner. And it's entirely up to you which way you go there. What do you then do to get the ball rolling? Well, the first building you absolutely should get on the ground ASAP is a warehouse. I know it can be really tempting to go straight in with an extractor, but I would strongly recommend right away getting a warehouse. At least your second building, if not your first. I strongly recommend first, but if you do want to if you think you've got the sway to put down a couple of extractors and find a good position first, then drop a warehouse, you can do. But for me, I would get one warehouse down and then start to sort of extract and sample around that. And then if that doesn't work, you can always relocate later on. But having a base of operations that is at least doing something is going to help you out. As an example, you might put down a warehouse, say here, then put down some extractors and find that it's just water and you didn't really want water. But at least you can be extracting water to sell it on the market and make some of that sway back whilst you build other things. By putting the warehouse down first, you are ensuring that you will always have somewhere to send your core samples, to send your drills, to put anything that you are extracting. All of that is going to be there. It also means that when you are building extractors, rather than just buying all of the materials you need for one extractor and sending it to that site, you can buy the materials for, say, 5 extractors, send them to a warehouse, and then just go extractor, 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 and boom, build them all in quick succession. That is how I would recommend doing things. Getting a warehouse on the ground early on is a very powerful start. Get one of these bad boys as soon as possible. From there, of course, it is the extractors. We're going to need extractors. If you are looking to start extracting things, then you need an extractor. And when an extractor first comes down, you're going to need to set up a core sample. To start up a core sample, you'll see here we've got a lot of different options of what we have in the area. I know, for example, I want water and I want calcite, so I'm going to start a calcite core extraction. You're then going to need to have drill bits, core drills. Now, core drills come out of a warehouse. Do you understand why we needed a warehouse now? So with that there, we now have a core drill. We can now actually start prospecting and pulling all of this out. And you'll notice here as well that we do have slightly faster times here because we've got miners on crew ×2. So it's 0.8 times speed rather than the usual 100% speed, or if you don't have miners, 200% speed. So yeah, we are going to be going through that quite quickly. Let's set up the bit in the background there. Then once you have loads of core samples and that going, of course, you then go into the actual sampling and extracting. Now, in order to do this, we do need a core sample. I don't actually have any of the... There we go. I do have one ready to go. So a calcite deposit core sample here in this particular extractor. And then where are we going to send it? Again, the warehouse. You need really to have a warehouse, whether it's your warehouse or a friend's warehouse. If you are playing as a group, make sure one of you gets a warehouse down ASAP. It is absolutely vital that that is the first building that all of you have available. The only reason you shouldn't be building a warehouse first is if you're either trying to settle on a location and you need to sample things first, or if someone you're playing with already has a warehouse set up with all the positions ready to go. permissions, sorry, not positions, all the permissions ready to go. So on that subject, let's talk about that briefly. When you have your warehouse selected, look for the keys under building management here. We can then go into update permissions, and then we have the lists here. So we go into the edit allow list, and you can either actually manually add the names of the individual crews that are going to be coming. You just literally start typing the name and find it on the list, or you can copy the wallet code. Now, if you're using something like a shared Discord, for example, with your friends, you can drop each other's wallet codes into like a chat there. Obviously, keep that fairly secure. You need more than a wallet code to get someone's wallet, but hey, you can share that and then paste that into here. Like you can see, I've got my wallet code here displayed, which means every time I add a new crew, it automatically gets the permissions added here. And you'll notice that with the warehouse, you've got add products and remove products. Be careful with what you're doing with those. Add products, you could actually have that completely open, make that public. Anyone on the asteroid can add materials if they so wish. That said, probably not the most vital thing, but the remove products is the important one. Obviously, if you've got multiple crews or if you've got friends who are going to be working with that same warehouse, you need to make sure that they have the right to remove products. Otherwise, that warehouse is sitting there full of all those nice building materials, but no one can do a thing about them. So with your warehouses set up, obviously it's important to actually then go into the inventory as well, send a load of stuff through here. You can see I'm sitting on a ton of things like quicklime, steel sheets, water. I've got food here for my crews, which is something you're going to need to buy early on from the market so that you can make sure your crews are all well fed. And then I've got things like my calcite deposits and carbon dioxide there that I'm extracting as well. And if I go to one of my other warehouses, you'll see that these have the other building materials as well in them. Steel sheets, steel cables, steel beams, things like that for helping me. And there's the cement for building other buildings. Things like the core drills there that I'm going to need to do sampling. You want to get those stocks up and running. So step 1, build a warehouse. Step 2, drop an extractor. Step 3, start making core samples, maybe building a few more extractors and making some more core samples with those drills. Buy a surplus of building materials, buy food. You need all of those things in that warehouse early on to keep your crews up and running, to start the extraction process and get things going. That is your baseline. That is your baseline for getting started with mining and extraction. I've shown you how to start a core sample. I've shown you how to use a core sample to start extraction. I've shown you how a warehouse works. That is going to be vital for you to start with. From there on, I'm going to touch on this briefly. If you did want to go a step further with this, you can add yourself a nice refinery. Refineries allow you to turn some of the raw goods that you extract into different raw goods. Like you can turn different things that you've extracted into other bits and pieces. If we have a brief look at some of the options here, I can't do it because it's currently on the wrong crew, but you can go into here, have a look at the list of different materials, and you can decide, for example, that rather than water, you want carbon dioxide and hydrogen, things like that. You can combine them into different ways and take a raw material and split it into other things, or you can take a couple of other raw materials and combine them into different things. Then, of course, from there, we can add in a factory if you want to start then taking those materials and building them into bigger things. You can also add in things like a bioreactor that will allow you to take some of those materials and turn them into things like algae. There are also things like you could build your own marketplace or your own habitat, not really necessary early on. Your vitals are the warehouse and extractors. From there, expand outwards if you wish, but that's your starting point. Hire your crew, 2 of the builders, 2 of the extractor miners. 5th option of your choice, build a warehouse, stock it, build extractors, start them running. It's that simple. Anyway, folks, that's it for today. If you are going down the mining route in Influence, please let me know. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to know how you want to get started. What materials interest you? Are you just going to do mining and extracting, or are you going to increase your production chain and start refining or even, manufacturing things as well? Would love to hear from you what you're going to be doing. Are you going to be playing solo, or have you got a group of friends that you're going to be jumping in with as well? I'm hoping to possibly get a Catskull crew set up in Influence when it does launch so that we can all play together, have some good fun, work towards some shared goals, maybe even own our own asteroid. Wouldn't that be pretty sweet? Anyway, folks, thanks for watching right the way through to the end. Happy sailing, and see you in Adalia!